MLB free agency is off to that typical slow burn that we've seen in years past. I think just like maybe 3 of the top 25, 30 free agents have deals. Of course, we know that one of those guys is Dylan Cease, and he signed a massive 7-year contract for $210 million to headline the Toronto Blue Jays rotation for years to come. And I know Jays fans are pretty excited about that and where the team is heading into 2026. So I think now is actually the perfect time for us to get greedy as Jays fans. And I want to dig into the position player side of this market and really narrow in on some potential targets that I think could really put the Jays roster over the top heading into the 2026 season. So without any further ado, let's get into 6 hitters I really want to see the Jays target in free agency. The first guy on this list that I want the Jays to target is Kyle Tucker because obviously he is the top free agent on this market this offseason. He is the easiest way to make a team better, and any team that he chooses to sign with or is lucky enough to sign him is going to be better instantly the moment he joins that roster and that lineup. He's going to be hitting in the middle or at the top of whichever team he signs with lineup for the next probably 8 to 10, maybe 8 to 12 years, depending on how long this contract goes. He's been worth over 4 WAR in 5 straight seasons, including 2024. He only played 78 games in 2024. He's 10th in WAR across Major League Baseball since 2021. Kyle Tucker is like one of the game's premier players, and he's going to be well worth that 350 plus, like maybe 400 plus $1 million that he's going to make in contracts this offseason. As far as the fit for the Jays, I think it's obviously fairly obvious. Any team in baseball, all 30 teams should be trying to make space for Kyle Tucker on their roster right now. But obviously that left-handed bat would fit really well in that right-handed heavy Jays lineup. I think last year, the 4 best hitters on the Jays were all right-handed. Like we're going to say Vladimir Guerrero Jr., George Springer, Bo Bichette, Alejandro Kirk are probably the consensus top 4 hitters in the Jays lineup, and they're all righties. So having that left-handed bat of Kyle Tucker in there, just like aesthetically, it would help clean it up, give pitchers different looks, make the Jays probably harder to pitch to. And this was already a team that was really hard to pitch to. I think Kyle Tucker would make that lineup look just absolutely filthy, even if it results in the loss of Bo Bichette leaving. And that's something I'll get into a little bit later in this video. But I think Kyle Tucker should be the number 1 option for the Jays as a free agent. The outfield would line up Anthony Santander, Dalton Varsho, Kyle Tucker from left to right. I think that's a pretty nasty lineup, and that goes without even mentioning Addison Barger, who will be opened up to play third base. I like Barger as a third baseman more than an outfielder, I think. I think he's a decent defender at both positions, but he came up as a shortstop, and I think like he's probably got a chance to be a pretty solid third baseman. I love the way the arm plays across the diamond. And then the case for the Jays to sign Tucker, I think as much as it is about the fit and like Tucker wanting to win and coming to Toronto and like how much fun that would be for the Jays, and if the Jays can get that done, like obviously they have to do it. But like who else is going to pay Tucker $400 million? Like the Jays have George Springer's money coming off the books next year. They've got like 80 something million coming off the books after the 2026 season. So there is space. Like the 2026 team may be a little bit too expensive and they may have to take a step back in 2027, but that's something that they're going to be able to do with how much money is coming off. So what other team is going to pay Tucker $400 million? The Yankees have been crying poor all offseason. They're trying to manage expectations. They seem satisfied to sign Cody Bellinger and call it an offseason. The Mets maybe have a spot after trading Nimmo, but like that's also a pretty quiet, like they've been pretty quiet for most of the offseason. The Dodgers, of course, are always going to be a threat, but it sounds like they'd have to make a trade, like maybe move Teoscar Hernandez out to make some room. The Phillies like are going to be in there. Like I could really see the Phillies making a play. The Cubs have already been reported out of it. The Red Sox, of course, are always going to be in there. And then it comes to the Bo Bichette conversation. And like, if you have to pick one or the other, and you can tell what I think because I put Kyle Tucker first on this list ahead of Bo Bichette, and Bo Bichette will be on this list later. Don't you worry. But like Bo Bichette hasn't had a 4-win season since 2022. Kyle Tucker has had nothing but 4-win seasons in the last 5 seasons. So like, I think Kyle Tucker is the clear and obvious choice if it's a either or conversation. But who's to say that they can't do both? I'm certainly not going to be the one to say it. I think maybe the accountants at Rogers and in the Toronto Blue Jays organization might say no. But I'm going to say if you can do one, why not do both? All right, now that I've made the most obvious case for a free agent signing of all time, maybe outside of Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani, we will get into some other names that I might need to make more of a case for. So sticking with the left-handed hitting outfielder theme, I have Cody Bellinger. who last year is coming off of a really, really good season. He put up actually more WAR than Tucker last season, 4.9 F4. Over 152 games. He had a very, very, very good season. And the fit is actually almost entirely similar to what Kyle Tucker offers, except Bellinger is obviously older and the floor is much lower. So, like, well, Bellinger may have had a more productive, obviously 0.1 F4, like give or take, season than Tucker. Very similar season to Tucker. I think we probably saw like maybe an 80th or a 90th percentile outcome for Bellinger. When Tucker, we probably saw like a 50th. Like we were closer to Tucker's floor than Bellinger's floor. Aside from that, the fit makes a lot of sense to me. The left-handed stuff, getting that left-handed bat into this right-handed heavy Blue Jays lineup, I think would make it look a lot better. Bellinger could probably hit second in front of Vlad, and then you can use whoever you want as cleanup. Like Anthony Santander is still kicking around there. Maybe Addison Barger's ready to be that. Like surrounding Vlad with left-handed bats is a look that I really, really, really like. And the other thing that Bellinger does well for me that I know the Jays value is he plays good outfield defense, especially in a corner. Like the sprint speed at 30 years old is still very, very solid. He covered a lot of ground. He was a plus outfielder last year. And he has the ability, we've seen in the past, for him to step into center field. We know that Dalton Varsho is going to be patrolling that position for the Jays whenever he's available. But in 2025, Varsho did miss a lot of time. So it would not be a negative to have another guy on the roster that like is a viable hitter and belongs in the lineup because of his bat, but also has the ability to play center field. Maybe it means a little bit less Miles Straw at bats this season, which, all due respect to Miles Straw, probably not a negative thing and not something the Blue Jays are really too worried about. Last thing he does another thing that the Jays really, really like, and that is he only strikes out 14.7% of the time in 2025. So Bellinger puts the ball in play, and that is something that we know the Jays valued. They made so many headlines this season from their ability to put the ball in play. Obviously, the Jays did it well hitting for power as well, and that's also something that Bellinger is able to do. 29 homers in 2025. Obviously, he hit like 40 or maybe even more than that in like his MVP season in 2019. Not sure that version of Cody Bellinger is still in there, but the version that the Yankees got last season is still a very, very productive player. And I think he could be very, very productive throughout the length of this 6, 7, 8-year contract that he's about to earn in free agency. The only issue with this is that I'm pretty sure the Yankees are going to bring him back. They seem very, very determined to bring him back. As I mentioned in the Tucker breakdown there, it seems like the Yankees might just be content to bring back Bellinger and maybe add a starter and call it an offseason. So if that's going to be the case, you might get stuck with another outfield option. But I think the Jays may be able to push the Yankees on Bellinger. And if the Jays really like Bellinger, who's to say that they can't go splash some money and go get him? Okay, so it doesn't take a genius for me or really anybody else to tell you that the Blue Jays or any team should try and sign the best free agents. The Blue Jays should try and sign Cody Bellinger. They should try and sign Kyle Tucker. Yeah, obviously, they're the best free agents. They're going to make a whole bunch of money. And the Blue Jays can do that. And hey, maybe they will do that. But I figured it'd be way more fun for me to kind of take a stab here and name a guy that is going to go under the radar. And that's Rob Refsnyder. Yeah, not probably who you thought you were going to see when you clicked on this video. But I think he could be a really fun pickup for the Jays. He was worth just 1 WAR in 2025, but he only played 70 games, and he pretty much played only against lefties, and he owned them. He hit 302 with a 959 OPS against lefties last year. 7 of his 9 homers came against lefties last year. He raked against lefties. He's under the radar, but maybe he shouldn't be, because in that platoon role, obviously the weak side of the platoon, so you can't play him a whole lot. He's not a great defender. But that's what I'm saying. In the platoon side of the role at the plate, I think there's Refsnyder has a lot to offer a team, and he would look great in a platoon with Addison Barger in right field. Like, just let Barger sit against lefties and let Refsnyder play and take Barger's spot on those days. Or he could give Dalton Varsho a day against a lefty. I'm not sure who plays center field for the Jays in that situation. Like, you got to get Miles Straw in the lineup, but then like that probably is Refsnyder's spot. So I don't know if it really works. And the other issue is that there's a lot of overlap with what he does and what Davis Schneider does. So like that probably involves a Davis Schneider trade, and you probably like what Davis Schneider is going to give you, and especially at the price that Davis Schneider is going to give it to you at in 2026. But I think Refsnyder is going to be a fun option for whoever picks him up, and we know that the Jays have liked him in the past. Yeah, Ross Atkins has acquired Rob Refsnyder before. He played 32 games for the Jays in 2017. Listen, it's just a shot in the dark. I don't think it's probably likely to happen, but I think Ref Snyder is going to have a good 2026 for whoever picks him up if they deploy him in the right role and let him just mash against lefties. That's what Rob Ref Snyder does, man. And I think it could be a fun pickup for the Jays. Okay, and moving to the infield side of things, it should probably be illegal for me to have left him this long. This is the name you were expecting to see in this video. It's Bo Bichette. And similar to the Kyle Tucker argument, because obviously the Blue Jays should try and sign Bo Bichette. There's so many, like, first of all, so many baseball reasons, but so many sentimental reasons that Bo Bichette should be a Blue Jay, if not for life, for the next 5, 6, 7 years, 8 years, whatever. Bo Bichette should be a Blue Jay for life. Like Vladdy and Bo are the Blue Jays. It's what this era of Blue Jays baseball has been, and I think there's just so much unfinished business with how the World Series ended and Game 7 ended. Like the Game 7 3-run home run should have won the Toronto Blue Jays the World Series. It should have been the defining moment of that World Series in 2025. And instead it's not, and there's unfinished business there. If the Blue Jays win the World Series, maybe Bo Bichette rides off into the sunset, and everyone's okay with that. But the Blue Jays didn't. And Bo Bichette is not riding off into the sunset, and nobody's going to be okay with that. If it's Bo Bichette or Kyle Tucker, listen, I'm still going to argue that it should be Kyle Tucker. But if Kyle Tucker is not a realistic option for the Jays or he goes elsewhere, I think the pivot to Bo Bichette should be fast. It should be done quickly. And I think Bo Bichette should be a Blue Jay for life. The only question I have is he willing to play second base? Because my shortstop is Andres Jimenez. We saw Andres Jimenez play shortstop throughout the playoffs. And I'm telling you, it was night and day compared to watching Bo Bichette play shortstop throughout the regular season. And Bo Bichette on that gimpy knee in the World Series played a very, very effective second base, a very solid second base. I think Bo Bichette could be a good to above average second baseman, at least in the next couple of years before that athleticism really declines. He's only 28, so you got probably maybe 3, 4, 5 years before that athleticism really, really tanks. I think the offense side of things is really not something I'm worried about. Bo Bichette's not a big bat speed guy. The approach is pretty much phenomenal. The bat to ball skills are phenomenal. I think Bo Bichette's going to hit for the rest of his career. The only thing is the defense. Is he a shortstop? I don't think he is. So the issue with that is I don't want Bo Bichette to play shortstop for my team going forward, right? Is there a team that's willing to have Bo Bichette play shortstop for them going forward? I don't know. And if there is, there's a good chance that the Jays really just are not able to match that offer. Maybe another team's willing to pay him extra, pay him as a shortstop. I think the Jays maybe should pay him as a shortstop to play second base, similar to what Texas did to Marcus Semien. I believe that was the offseason heading into 2022, right? Obviously, Semien a Met now. Maybe that contract didn't work out as well as Texas was hoping for. I don't know. If it's an either-or situation in Kyle Tucker, as I mentioned, it should be Kyle Tucker. But the sentimental part of me will always say Bo Bichette is a Toronto Blue Jay. Bo Bichette should be a Toronto Blue Jay. And he's probably the second best free agent on the market, arguably at least. Maybe you want to say Alex Bregman or something along those lines. But Bo Bichette should be a Toronto Blue Jay. And this is the guy that, if it's not Kyle Tucker, they will be and should be targeting in free agency. Now, if disaster strikes, the Blue Jays are unable to sign Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette. Of course, obviously, none of that is a guarantee by any means. Kazuma Okamoto would be a good option. Of course, I am very, very, very skeptical to advocate for a guy that I've never seen play. I've never seen Kazuma Okamoto play. Of course, I can read ESPN articles and I can read Fangraphs articles, and I have access to Baseball Reference too, and I can read the back of a baseball card as good as anybody. So, 2025, 77 games, 322 average, 992 OPS, 15 homers. That's very, very good. The approach is supposed to be phenomenal. Just 36 strikeouts to 34 walks in 2025. Those are very, very, very effective numbers. And he's got 8 straight seasons of better than an 800 OPS in the MPB. That's professional baseball. That's a league that I've heard compared to as better than AAA. So if you're doing that, you are obviously a big leaguer. So I think everything that I've heard about Okamoto, he belongs in the big leagues. Obviously, the question is going to be, can he hit velocity? It's always a question with hitters coming over from Japan and Korea and Asia. So, yeah, it's going to be a question. Maybe he's not exactly this type of hitter where he's going to sleepwalk towards an 800 OPS. Obviously, you look at the Red Sox and what happened with them and Masataka Yoshida. It's something that like is kind of a disaster for the Red Sox right now. Like they are desperate to get off of that contract, and nobody wants it because Yoshida was supposed to come over and instantly hit, and he kind of hasn't really done that. He doesn't have a defensive position really. He's kind of a DH only, and that's something we're a little bit worried about with Okamoto. He's been a third baseman in the past, but he's already 30, so he probably needs to play first base, which is kind of obviously we know a good difficulty for the Jays because they're paying some guy, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., like $500 million over the next 14 seasons to play first base. So maybe the fit is not perfect, but if you can get a season of him at third base, maybe it's going to displace Addison Barger to the outfield kind of thing. Like there's a way to make it work, and if he's going to be the hitter that some people think he will be, there's going to be a spot for Okamoto in the lineup every day. Of course, the last thing I'll touch on with him is we know that it could be a possibility because the Jays have had a very, very strong presence in the Pacific Rim in recent seasons, obviously starting with Hyunjin Ryu and then Yusei Kikuchi or Blue Jays. We know the Jays were so in on Roki Sasaki last season before he ended up choosing the Dodgers. We just saw the Jays sign Cody Ponce coming over from the KBO. So that's something that the Blue Jays have been in on in the past, and it's something that we know they have a very strong presence in. So Okamoto could be a very interesting option. Of course, haven't seen him play, so it's hard for me to advocate fully. But everything I've read, man, like seems like he's kind of the real deal, and he would be a good option for the Jays if Bichette is to walk. Okay, so the sixth and final name that I'm going to bring up is Jorge Polanco. He would be another solid way to replace Bichette at second base if he were to walk. Obviously, in this case, your middle infield would be Andres Jimenez at shortstop, and Polanco at second base. And I think that'd be a very, very solid like defensive alignment up the middle. Obviously, we know the defense with Polanco is not great. He's already 32 years old, and it's probably not getting better. Jays really don't have a lot of DH at bats available, and that's why Polanco's kind of lower on this list. The thing is that you would have to pay him like he's lower on this list. He's not going to cost too much money. He's not going to be making this big contract. The other thing I'd be a little bit concerned about is that you're buying high. He's coming off probably the best offensive season of his career in 2025. He really made the most of it because his career probably almost ended after 2024. The Mariners gave him a shot after he put up 93 weighted runs created plus in 2024. And then he made the most of this opportunity in 2025, put up 2.6 F4, 132 weighted runs created plus. Very, very solid season. Really didn't strike out that much in 2025, a 15.6% strikeout percentage. We know the Jays love that, but it was nearly 30 in 2024. So we like cut that in half. I don't know. I know this is not the most glowing review of Jorge Polanco, but I was really, really impressed with what I saw from him in the playoffs. We've seen a cleanup in that Mariners lineup, that stacked Mariners lineup filled with power. Like I think Jorge Polanco is a very, very capable hitter. I think he would look really good in the middle of the Blue Jays lineup. I think there's a lot more risk to signing him than a lot of these other free agents. And that's why he's so low on my list. He's going to be the last name I bring up in this video. And you're going to have to pay him like that. The projections really are not crazy on Polanco. So if Bichette's to walk, I think bringing in Polanco would be a good idea for the Jays. If Jorge Polanco is the headline position player acquisition, obviously Blue Jays fans maybe not going to be the most excited after this offseason heading into 2026. But I think Polanco, in addition to something else, could be a very, very good fit for the Blue Jays. Anyways, that's all I've got for you today. Thanks for tuning into this edition of 6 Free Agent Hitters. I want the Blue Jays to be a target, and that I think they should be targeting. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have some names you think I missed or some guys you want the Jays to target in free agency or even on the trade market, let me know in the comments. Would be happy to break it down with you and maybe write an article about it or make another video about it in the near future as free agency continues. And if you enjoyed this, be sure to let us know at Jay Center. And thank you so much for watching.